Good morning, everyone. Really pleased to see you here today. Just before we start the seminar, I'd like to pay homage to our recent uncle, grandpa, from Gurindji country. As you can see, there's an image of him here. Uncle Jimmy Wavehill, who just passed away a couple of days ago. So the Gurindji side of me pays homage to people, all my family and that, to staff here at Batchelor, Gurindji staff. Anyway, we'll just put the picture of Uncle Jimmy up here today so we could honour him. I just want to say we all had a really fantastic relationship with him. He was one of the greatest teachers and we learnt so much from him. This image here, this is with my husband. I was taken out at Kalkarinji on the 25th of August 2011 at the 45th anniversary of the Wave Hill Walk-Off. And it's so sad to say that Uncle Jimmy passed away on the 25th of August 2021, 10 years to the day. But not only was he a great friend to a lot of people, including my husband, but he's also, like I said, he's our uncle, our grandpa, and a great teacher, one of the greatest teachers. So I just wanted to pay that homage to Uncle Jimmy today and honour all Gurindji Nation people while I'm standing in my other country, which is Kungarakan country. And I thank you all for being here today. As usual, I've brought paperbark with me, which is a Kungarakan tradition, so that we all share in the same spirit. Today, our seminar series is to be our presenter today is Dr. Raj Coppola, who's going to talk on the socio-economic problems of sanitary working women. And so I'm not going to talk too much about that except to greet Dr. Raj Coppola here today and hope you enjoy the seminar. Thank you all for your attendance. I believe, just quickly because I'll forget later, I believe we're all going to the dining hall for lunch following this instead of having the normal Subway snacks. Okay? So anyway, it's up to Raj to come up now and take over from me. Thank you once again. I forgot to mention any Gurindji students who might be on campus today too, or in attendance today. We haven't forgotten, we think of you today.
Oh, is it?
If anyone wants to take a piece of paper back or some leaf, please help yourself. Thank you.
Good morning, all.
Morning.
I wanted to acknowledge the traditional custodian of the land on which we stand today, Kungarakan country, especially Kungarakan elder and academic Dr. Sue Stanton, and Lareke country, where I reside with my family and pay my respect to all the elders, past, present, and emerging. I'm grateful and thankful to Batchelor Institute for employing me for almost 7 years and giving me this opportunity to present this seminar. Just before I go into the introduction, when I was preparing the PowerPoint, my son was sitting just next to me, and I was reading the acknowledgement, and he asked me, "What about Larekia, Papa?" So he wanted to include Larekia people, because then he said, we do the same thing in our assembly, during our assembly every Friday, and we acknowledge Larekia people. And I said, that's a very good cultural thought that he's been given in the school from the beginning, that we need to respect the land that we are standing in and residing in. And immediately I added Larekia people, where actually we reside in Darwin. So that is just a story behind why I added Larekia people. And I think it is good that we need to instill in kids the acceptance of the tradition, the land that we sit, stand, and reside, and we play in. And that is what for the kid. And I added that after that. When it comes to the presentation, I'm not going to present the whole of my PhD. It's about 400 pages, but I just took what is appropriate for this seminar in relation to the cultural aspect of it. Many people, when we think about India, people think, oh, India is a country and all people from India have got the similar culture or the same culture. Actually, it is different. When I was actually started doing this research, I was in Hyderabad, which is not anymore in our state. So at the time, the state was called Andhra Pradesh, and that is where mostly I will be talking about, and only one of the cities I will be talking about. And I used to work there as I'm principal of the school. I had 600 kids, about 635. I had 40 staff, teaching staff, and I had 4 or 5 non-teaching staff who used to look after the maintenance of the area. Among that 4 or 5 non-teaching staff, I had in particular 2 staff members. Those were women, and their duties were in particular to deal with the cleaning of the toilets, cleaning of the school and the perimeters, and the other staff were to do with the outside maintenance. And I worked with them for 3 years, and that is where I got the thought that these people actually work from 7 o'clock. They are there 6 o'clock in the morning at school, and they don't go back home until 6 or 7 o'clock. That's more than 12. Sometimes they work more than 12-hour shift. But when it comes to the pay, they were the least paid employees in the school, because all the teachers get good pay. I used to get a good pay, and there were other employees, those who were getting good pay. When it comes to their pay, I used to always think, how can I increase their pay without the knowledge of the management, which is not right. And I used to help them out in my own way. But beside that, the work they used to do, the hours of work they used to put in actually in the school was way more than any of us in the staff that used to work in that school. And that is the thought pattern actually I have taken to my PhD. And they are the 2 inspiring women that I have taken, and that is because my master's is actually in human rights and duties education, and I have diverted from human rights, touched a little bit of human rights in my PhD, but then mostly have gone into the women, those who actually do the work that not all of us pleased to do. And because of that reason, my whole PhD I have dedicated to this type of work. And that is where the title comes from. The study on socio-economic problems of working women, sanitary working women, those who are working in to sanitize everything, to keep the city beautiful. And that is in particular to Vijayawada. So I will be talking about a little bit of Vijayawada. Vijayawada is at the moment it is one of the capital. At the time it was one of the cities in the state. And municipal corporation, when you say, you might think what it is. It is similar to our LGA, so local government area. So we have a Darwin Council, we have a Palmerston Council. Similarly, we have got for this particular city, Vijayawada, we have a Metropolitan Council, which is called as a municipal corporation in our terminology. And of course, the Andhra Pradesh is the state that this city is actually in. I wanted also to acknowledge my research director, that is Assistant Professor Dr. Dhanalakshmi. So she was great. I was just talking to one of the staff members here. I started PhD in 2008, but I completed only in 2017. It took a long time. No. So in between, I did a lot of my work. 80% of my work was already completed. The field work, everything was completed. It happened so that I had to move to Australia. So I moved to Kananara. So I had to, as usual, people would know, immigrants, I was struggling with the visa, changing my visa over, getting the Australian citizenship and all these things. Took about 4 or 5 years. And by the time I finished all this work to settle in Australia, I had to put a halt on my PhD. Afterwards, I went back to India to the university and then contacted Dr. Dhanalakshmi, and then she was like, Raj, it's too many years. Actually, your registration has lapsed. So I had to re-register and then submit my work again, bring it to the standard, and had to go through the approval process. And it took about another 2 years for me to complete. And she was great, because not those who have done the PhD, research directors have got at least 10 or 12 students under them, and I was one of those 12. But she always gave me special care to complete my chapter. When I submitted my completed chapter, she went through. So always, I am grateful to her, and I always keep in touch with her. So to this day, I keep calling her and check how her work is going in the university. So to make it more context to the seminar series that we are doing, people from India probably wouldn't need to know this, because that is there through the education process. They learn about a lot of things, whereas people a lot about this particular slide, and the rest of the PhD would be mostly, this is the foundation. From there, we actually derive into the PhD that I have actually done. Gods of Hinduism. So Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. So they are the 3 main gods. And he is one first among all those 3, Brahma. And when you look at it, so head, so that is basically corresponding to your brain. And that is people from within, so the whole Indian society is divided into, these are the areas. So whole India, doesn't matter where you go, usually you will have the segregation of villages based on this. Probably you wouldn't find so much so in the cities if you go to the cities, but you need to go into the remote parts of India, and that is where you would find, even within the one village, you will have a segregation of one part, one particular caste will be living, there is another part where another caste will be living, there is another caste. And that segregation is always there, and it is there to this day. Only thing not in the cities, because cities is pretty much like any one of our cities. So Brahma, when we say Brahmins, so they are the priests and teachers. So Brahmins are the people as per the caste system. They are the people, those who are allowed to enter into the temple. So temple itself, as you know, you will have different areas. So one for the people, those who are actually going, so they are the devotees, and then one area is dedicated for the priest. And that particular area, nobody is allowed to enter. So only the priests from this particular area, that is Brahmins, are allowed to enter, because they know the mantras. They know the teachings of Vedas. They know the teachings of Upanishad, and they are the things that people we studied from the olden days, so ancient time, from 3000, 4000 BC, and we've been studying about it. So they are the ones holder of knowledge, Brahmins. And you can see the shoulder corresponding to Kshatriya. So they are the usually kings, they are the warriors, and they are the people, when the war comes, they are the ones at the front foot to defend the nation. So that is a Kshatriya, that corresponds to the shoulder. And then you can see the thigh and the leg part, and they are the people from business class, so Vaishyas. So they are the farmers, they are the traders, they are the merchant people. They do the trading with other people, other countries, within the caste. So they will have most of the businesses, actually they are the ones, they are running the business. So all other people are allowed to come and buy it, but then they have to go back to their own places. So Vaishyas. And we have Sudras. So Sudras are actually corresponding to the foot. So that means they are supposed to do all the labor work. So the labor work, when I say, if a farmer has got 100 hectare land, he needs a laborer, because we don't have the equipments like we have in Australia. You have a bulldozer, excavator to dig and build. We need laborers. In India, we are not that advanced. Probably now, but still, if you go back to the cities where they are building everything, you will see laborers, those who are doing hard manual work, carrying the sand, carrying the bricks on their head, and they are the laborers. So that particular caste, Sudras. And there is another group of people, doesn't correspond to any of that God, you can see, and that is the Dalit, outcast, untouchable. Untouchability was there in India. Sad to say, there are people still believe in untouchability to this day. Not everyone, but there are people in the remote parts of the country, they still believe in untouchable. And I was still surprised, like a couple of days ago, I was watching an Indian movie, and they are talking about the religion, and we are so advanced in technology, we are able to send the people to the moon. But people are killing themselves for the sake of religion. And that is what advanced we are, especially in India. So Dalit, when you say, they are the street sweepers. So who cleans our streets? Probably a machine comes from the council, it cleans up. When I say latrine, they are the toilets, not that fancy as the toilets we have here. And if you go to the villages, they will go worse and worse. And that is where those cleaners will come and they manually clean them. And they are the group of people that I am actually presenting my PhD on. So you can read for yourself, but I'm just going to explain. So there are people, if you go to India, I don't know how many of you have traveled to India. If you go to India, travel in the railway tracks, there are people cleaning the tracks, because there are human feces on the tracks, and they will be physically hosting it. And they are the work done by the people from this caste that are not even mentioned in any of those lists. And they are the people. And when you say it is dehumanizing, but that is the reality in India. And so that is what we have, the constitution, and the one who wrote the constitution is one of the Dalits. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, he is one of the greatest person. That is about the definition. You can read, but the definition very clearly says it is the people, those who do what type of work they do, as a sweepers, and so they physically employed by the state governments, local LGS, and sometime these days, because we have contractors now, so the contractors actually employ them and then pay them the minimum wage that they can pay to the people that actually keep the environment healthy, hygiene, and sanitized. So you can see there, I have mentioned about the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. He is the author of the Indian Constitution, and he is from Dalit. He is from one of those outcast, untouchable group, caste. And when he became the author, he said, I want to give a reservation to my own people, because a person, one who comes from that caste, can't go up the ladder. When it comes to the job market, they can apply as a cleaner, they can apply as a cleaning supervisor, but if he has got IT skills, probably he is not considered, because from the name they can guess where he is coming from and what caste he comes from, and his application wouldn't be. And I have seen that from my own childhood, that when I was studying in the school, that depending on your surname, they will decide who can get. I believe I have worked as here in Australia, and you can see that my Australian thoughts after living for 5-6 years in Australia, my recommendations that we think as a granted for us as part of the EBA are all embedded in my recommendation as part of my PhD. Because until I came here, I didn't know what the other world and what the EBAs look like, whereas in India it is different. So those recommendations are part of my PhD, which will be coming through. So continue on to say, so depending on your surname, they can find out which caste you belong to, and accordingly you will get the job in the job market. So when Dr. Ambedkar actually drafted the constitution, he said, when there is a job for a commissioner or an executive of the government, we will have 2% dedicated for each caste. That means there will be 10 job vacancies, 2 job vacancies can never be filled other than the people coming from this caste. 8 people can be filled with anybody else, it's not a matter, but those 2 places were reserved so that people from outcasts, those who suffer all through their life, have got better education, have got better experience, they can do the job really good, can become an administrator, can become a commissioner. And the similar laws were applied in the parliament. So when there is an election, if there is a population of, let us say, 100,000, the constituency consists of 200,000, and there are 120,000 belong to this caste. If the people are from this caste, then the elected person can only become, so the government has to declare that particular constituency, reserve that MLA seat or MP seat for this particular caste. And that is what has been actually legislated. It is in the constitution. So whoever is standing in the election wants to become an MLA, wants to become MP, they will be from this caste, so that they can talk to their own people, they can take the issues of their own people straight to the parliament, and not that from other four castes that they never experienced that untouchability can go and present your case. So these things are embedded into our constitution. And so our constitution came in force in 1950, 26th of January 1950. 10 years later, the report was produced, Malkani Committee report, and you can see that primitive practices was still existing 10 years later after the constitution coming in force. And I can really say now, I go back to India every second year. Last 2 years I haven't been, and I can still see the same thing is happening. There is no reports, but it still continues on. So I have given a very list of few states that are major players in the country and how many people are actually reported. So there will be few people that are not even registered for voting. They are not in the remote places. They are not registered in the remote for election. So all these things, these numbers probably wouldn't reflect exactly what the area that we are talking about. So statement of the problem was many Indian women actually they don't want to be confined to their household. They want to get out, and with the current economical situation, they want to get out, they want to be free, they want to work, but when they apply for the job, the caste comes to play, and then that is where the issues are. And they don't want to sit when they have fully qualification, they are fully qualified, they have experience to do the job, but they can't get away. And it gets worse for women. And so far I was talking in general, but when it comes to the women area, when we are discussing, there are people still after the marriage they say, oh, you need to just look after, care for the baby, that's all we want, because we have a lot of money, but we don't want to go and don't want you to go and work. And that is the thought pattern of Indian society. And it doesn't continue so much in the city because of the cost of living. Both have to contribute to run the household. Whereas in the communities, if you go to the remote part of the villages, this is the story. So I have dealt in my PhD with, these are the only specific things. So socio-economic conditions of municipal women sanitary workers in that area, and I have only, and their income and expenditure, and then their life status, that is married, unmarried, widowed, about those, and then also decision making process in the family, and then also working condition in their job, and then also some suggestion to improve the workers' life while they do employment. So the hypothesis was that there is an association between employment and caste that is there. There is an association between employment and type of house of the respondents. And also there is an association between employment and education qualifications of the respondents. And there is also association between the family decision making and the respondent. So area was conducted in Vijayawada Municipal Corporation, so similar to Darwin region, and I only interviewed 300 working women in the sanitary working unit, and there were male, but I have taken only 300 working women from this particular area, and all of those people were either street cleaners, drainage cleaners, and they were waste cleaners, picking up the waste from the side of the road, loading onto the truck, and we call them lorry in India. So that is, I think, British or probably American terminology, but it is trucks in Australia. So they physically load it with their manual physical hands, and then they throw it in the dump. So these are the people actually involved in my research. So Vijayawada, that is a map of Vijayawada at the moment, and when I did the research, it was one of the cities, major cities in Andhra Pradesh, but now it is so current government has actually come in recently 3 years ago, and they have established 3 capital cities in the same state, one for judicial, one for executive, one for administrative sort of thing, so that 3 different areas are developed in the state. So there is, but this is one of the main hubs where the assembly is being held. Okay, I probably don't have much time, so I will just quickly go through with you the research one. So as I said, 300 women were part of the interview process, part of the research, and then we analyzed this one. We used the SPSS package. So whatever the interview data we got, we put it, updated into that software to get the results, and these are some findings. So we could see the majority of people, that is 78.6%, you can see they had religious background, they were from Hindu, so Hinduism, and 21.30 were from Christianity, and 0.10 belong to other religions. And you need to know also that about 80% of India's population are Hindus, and rest of the other religion, 80 to 85 Hindus, rest of the people actually, the second biggest religion is Muslim, and after that is Christianity, and then we have Buddhism, Zionism, Zias, I think there's another one, a small religion is there as well. So by caste, so surprisingly 100% of the interviewees, so all of them belong to the last caste, that is outcaste that we were talking about. Within that caste they have got subgroups, so they have their own tier system, and then within that 48 of them were from Madhika, 35.5 were from Raili, and 16 of them from Mala subcaste. So they have their own, again within that caste there is again division, and that is what the results came back with. And you can see the findings again. So the majority of them were illiterate, so they never went to school. They got the job because they are from that particular caste. 42 of them studied up to 5th grade, not much. So they had to take the path of their parents. And 4.6 respondents studied up to secondary education. Secondary education probably wouldn't fetch you anything in India, because people with masters and PhD probably struggle to get job. And let's talk about the secondary education, probably wouldn't get. But they did get job because they had no other choice. So they had to take up the job that is available in their own class. And that's the reason they ended up there. So you can see their marital status as well. So I have explained about the marital status. So 89% of the respondents were married, and then 10% were unmarried. And within the again there you can see 60% were actually living in their household with their husband, 19% were widowed, and then 10 were probably separated, 10%. Again you can see the I think I went back, sorry. Yeah. So part of Indian culture, joint family is one of the major connecting points of the Indian society. I lived in a joint family until 12 and then moved up to a different nuclear family where only myself, my dad, my mom, and I have 3 sisters. We all live together. Until 12, I lived with my grandfather, 5 aunties, so my father and then his elder brother. So we all lived in the same house, and obviously it's a big family, and that's how we are brought up. After 12, obviously for the job, employment, education, we have to move on, and we had to go into the nuclear. But you can see that 77% of the respondents live in a nuclear family. The reason, the jobs are available only in the cities. So they have to relocate from their joint family and then come and get the job in the cities. Obviously, they become nuclear family. The joint families in the city, it is really expensive to cost-wise. So, but there were still few respondents were joint families, that is 23%. So you can see there 32% of the respondents were street cleaners. So physically, they will have a broom and they clean the street 4:30, 5:30 in the morning. If anybody is going that time of the day towards the city, you can see that the people will be doing the job. Also, 24% were from drainage cleaner, and that starts only about 8 o'clock or something. They will be doing that cleaning. So most of the cities, like at the moment, is pretty good in the cities area, but if you go to the suburban area, we don't have the sophisticated drainage system that we have in the Western world. So they have on the side of the road, they have a physical small drainage which is made with the mud, and the local LGA have to appoint some people to go and clean that up on a daily basis or every second day or third day, and so that does happen. And 19% were involved in loading and unloading of the waste. So the waste, when I say that, is from the side of the street, collecting the wastage from the household, and then they go and dump it in a bigger truck, physically load and unload with the shovel, and then go and unload again in the big dump. And you can see the 49% of the have 11 years or 20, between 11 to 20 years. They worked in the same job and having similar experience. 31% of the people were 10 years, and then 20% were about 21. So most of their life they work in the same job. I know my grandfather got a job. He worked in the same job until he retired. My second grandfather, he was the teacher, then he was headmaster. He retired in the same school as a headmaster. I know one of my aunties, she's working there. She's working the same job as a teacher, but she does get transfer, but same teaching field. So in India, most of the people tend to stay in the same job, same area. Once they get the job, they have the same job continuously. They don't like to change the job. So you can see that is reflective here as well with the similar corresponding stats. So recommendations. Some of the recommendations were actually, when I sent the draft one, my supervisor actually said, Raj, where are you getting these ideas from? The things that happen in Australia, you can't do it in India. So I had to cut down a few recommendations because I will be definitely, because the government, one thing, government wouldn't accept the recommendation if it is going through the social work channel. Secondly, it is a bit hard to convince. So there are few already which are there, which are already in place, and then I added a few more. So most of the work when I used to live there was directly employed by the municipal corporation, And as the days, like my younger age, where people were directly employed, and these days people are all subcontracting. So less hassle, you give to a contractor, if something happens, they look after, the government doesn't need to worry about. And that is the path the government is taking, which is bad for the people, because they know only that particular job, and they can't even get, if they get hurt in the work, they can't even claim for workers' compensation, which we have easily available for us. Whereas for them, no, they can't get. So they basically give up the job, and that becomes a stressful situation. Son or a daughter who is probably well educated has to go and take up a job in the same caste because he has to care for the family, and there is no welfare system in India. That means if you work, you get the money. If you don't work, you don't get the money. So, and that is another why the second generation, third generation keeps going into the same type of work, or at least similar type of work. And you can see what I have already written there. Most of the people were from the same group that we were talking about. None of them actually were working in a different caste. So whole group was actually findings were that they were there, and you can see most of them lived in the government issued quarters. That means the housing, and that's where they were living. And about the conclusion. So I'm right about the time, I believe. So that's where. Is there any questions and clarifications? Yes.
Is there any role that unions play?
Sorry?
Is there any role that unions play?
Unions?
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, the union is a party in itself. So most of the unions are actually coming from Communist Party, and they are known as a Marxist Communist Party they have within that two groups. So, and most unions actually they talk straight to them. And in India there are two political parties, major political parties. The current government is the Bharatiya Janata Dal Party, which is mostly Hinduism. So they are, I wouldn't say the party as well as a whole, but there is a wing of that party which is a fanatic. So that is what the policies are driven by. Then we have a second biggest party is the Congress, Indian Congress, and Indian Congress is the other party which is different one. And none of those parties actually talk to the union, because union has got a third party which is a Communist Party of India. So sort of they don't have a very good play, but they do communicate to the people. Only in one state though, in Kerala, there are two players. Is the only one state that they actually have. Basically Congress comes up and takes the party for 5 years ruling, and then the next party basically wins and takes up. So that is the only state I can think of that has got the Communist Party with the union background and the stuff. But rest of the country, probably it is very less union sort of thing, but it is not people's driven either, if I say. Yeah.
So Raj,
Yeah.
the caste system was established by
Yeah. So, okay, good question. So caste system, so as I said, 85% of the people are Hindus in India, and they believe in Vedas. So we have got ancient literature that is written, and there is a Manusmrit. Manuscript is another one kind of a document that is written by Hindu people from Brahmin caste, that is the topmost one. And they have basically laid down the rules and regulations, and that is how the caste system has come into. But it is not meant to be that way. Actually, if we go through the Vedas, that is one of the main scriptures, and it's not scripture as such, but they are the book that actually we believe in. And Upanishad, that's another thing that we actually everything corresponds back to that. they were actually written for the sake of doing some work. It's like, okay, we can do this job, you can do that job. But then it became so bad that that particular family took up that job as a whole. The other family took, oh, this is what my dad did, so I have to do only that job. And that is how it has actually become. So the concept which was built for the good system has actually lost. That concept is lost, and now it has gone into caste system.
So after your study, Raj, and getting all like with the caste system,
Yeah.
and after your studies and the recommendations that you suggested at the end of your studies,
Yeah.
and having an overall look at everything, do you see anything changing?
It does change. It has changed a lot.
Yeah.
Not because of my recommendation, though. I wouldn't do that. Not because of me, but I think the more people are educated, the more people learn about the system, the more about people actually learning about their limitations that they can. Then the human kind is such. If you confine a human being into one spice, they will try to get out of that spice and prove their excellence. Yeah, and the more people are educated, the more people are actually learning about the caste system and stuff. They say, oh, if that is what is defining me to be, I don't want to be that. I want to be better than that. And that is what Indian society, especially city area, has gone that path. But then with the changes of the government, you must be watching the news, it still happens. The religion, so the politician take, so if I belong to one particular caste, I will say, hey people, all you come from my caste, you need to vote for me so that I can have a voice in the parliament. And that's how Indian society works. So the people, those who are left out, those who don't have any representation, they don't have any say. So now,
Sounds very similar to where we're living here.
that's right, that's what. So caste system sort of is not fully disappeared. In the remote areas, still we have it. Local governments are run with a caste system in place, most of the remote places. But now the religion has crept into Indian society. Religion has become a part of the political agenda. I am Hindu, you need to come and vote for me. I am Christian, you need to come and vote because, see, I can do a lot of things for you. I can bring so many jobs for you. And that is the concept. Unfortunately, that is what is happening. And with the current government not being political or diplomatic, that is what, unfortunately. And it is not I am saying, you can go and Google. These days you can Google anywhere what is happening in a real time. So you can Google for yourself. And that is what it is. One more. Sorry, Dr. C.
Just quickly,
Yeah.
of the 300 women you interviewed, and they all belong to a scheduled caste,
Yeah.
did any of those belong to a tribal caste?
So as per the 300, they were all belonging to scheduled caste. So we have another one that is scheduled tribe. So indigenous people of Australia, people of India, they fit into that category, and none of them were part of that interview process. Possibly because not many people live in that area. So I need to go into a remote area to do the interview probably, and then for the next publication or something, and then that I might get the data for that. But unfortunately, in my study, none of them were from the scheduled tribe. Yeah.
So when you interviewed them, did you interview them, or did you just get quantitative data?
That's correct, yeah.
So you did the survey.
That's right, yeah. So, yeah. And then the survey, we described it at a later stage, yeah.
Does the caste system affect marriage as well, like skins and like skins here, I suppose?
Of course, yes. People get killed for getting married into a different, yeah. So, if it's not necessarily, but if these days in the cities it is different, but when it comes to the reality, like if two different castes, imagine a girl is from a higher caste and a boy is from a lower, probably there is more likely chances in the villages that boy will be killed or they will be separated even after living for a year or so. They will ask them to go back to their own families. And there are scenarios they get killed. The boy would disappear probably. You wouldn't even know that he's been killed. He just disappeared and he's not there anymore. So that is very much possibility. It's not possible, it's reality. I wouldn't even say possibility, it is a reality. And these days, Hindu, Muslim, you can't marry both. So that is also is another issue in itself. So it is very much the reality of India. Thank you very much for listening to me and keeping awake.
Yes, thank you for that applause. And thank you, Raj. That was absolutely fascinating. I think it's really good for all of us to hear other perspectives and just a whole different scene that might have a lot of similarities for Aboriginal people. Like Evelyn suggested, I kept picking up on quite a few points and saying, yeah, what's different?
Yeah.
But, and I myself was born in a time in Darwin, in the Northern Territory, when we were called half castes.
Yeah.
That was my label. And so we had a caste system, probably not as dramatic as yours, but not a lot different. And it was also based around what family you came from.
Yeah.
So I was lucky to be part of the McGuinness family. That's my Kungarakan grandfather. And then people like Uncle Jimmy, who I mentioned earlier today. And it was because of the Wave Hill walk-off and all those things that brought about a lot of change for us. Mm-hmm. But we're still plodding along that road with change. But once again, I really want to thank you because I think it was really fascinating and I hope you all enjoyed it. And we've all learnt something new today, which is what the seminar series is about anyway. Yeah. So on behalf of... Yes, take it please, before I do something. So on behalf of our acting CEO, Professor Allison, who's present in the room today, and on behalf of Batchelor Institute and our staff, our students and the community, I'd like to thank you once again and present you with this small gift from us.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sue.
And thank you very much once again. Our next seminar is September and it will be Dr. Curtis Roman and people from the Aboriginal Interpreter Service. So I hope you can attend that as well.
Yeah.
And we're getting to the end of the year. Once again, Raj, thank you for being so patient. When I was looking for presenters, he was one of the first people I asked and he immediately put his hand up and he's been waiting since March. So thank you very much again, Raj.
Thank you, Dr. Singh.
And thank you everyone for your support. Thank you.
Just before I leave, I just wanted to thank marketing team Adam, Patrick, Emmanuel, Dr. Sue, and there are so many people, Karen, that they were back and forth, Charlie Ann in Alice Springs, actually, back and forth emails about the preparation and all these things. So thank you very much. Without you, like this morning I came and they were all setting up and I was like, I never imagined this much work is involved. And I can see someone saying, just because of you, Raj. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.
So the Alice Springs text to say thank you.
Thank you.
Good.